Hello everyone, and welcome to a first look at Galactic Civilizations 4 Supernova. I'm your host, Colors Fade. So what is Galactic Civilizations 4 Supernova? Is it an expansion, DLC? Is it a brand new game? Is it a reboot? I think it's fair to say that the answer to that question is all of the above. It is an expansion to the game Galactic Civilizations 4, but it's being treated much more like a full reboot of the game than any expansion I've ever seen. Galactic Civilizations 4 was released over a year ago in April of 2022, and it's my understanding that that release was met with a whole lot of disappointment, that there were features people felt should have been in the game and weren't there, and that the game just wasn't what it should be. And so Stardock, instead of just trying to release a patch and maybe a DLC to kind of put a rug over the mess, has decided to treat this expansion, this Supernova expansion, as a whole reboot to the game. So that's what I'm going to be treating it as, a brand new game. It's currently in early access, and I've heard from Stardock that they anticipate releasing it in about 3 to 6 months. So what I'm going to be doing in this first impression video is reacting to everything. As far as I'm concerned, it's a brand new game. I did not play Galactic Civilizations 4 when it was released, so I have no idea what that game was like. The only thing I can do is judge what Galactic Civilizations 4 Supernova is. From the outset, it's clear that this is a Galactic Civilization game. The UI, as always, is clean, clear, and colorful, and we're presented with familiar faces when we go to select our factions. You can also build your own faction if you want to, as has been the custom with prior Galactic Civilization games. But after selecting our faction, the first big departure from prior versions of Galactic Civilizations happens. In prior games, the entire galaxy was staged on a single hexagonal map, much like classic Civ games. But with Galactic Civilizations 4 Supernova, Stardock has decided to shake things up. Instead of a single hex-based galaxy map, the galaxy is now much bigger with multiple hex-based sectors connected via a series of hyperlanes. When you're setting up your galaxy, you can choose how many of these things that you want to actually have, whether you want to have only a few sectors or whether you want to have a lot of sectors. Does this remind you of any other Space 4X games? The comparison to Stellaris is obvious, and it's easy to understand why. Stardock certainly wants to attract Stellaris players to their game, and why shouldn't they? But beyond financial reasons for shifting their design, it's just a really good gameplay decision. For my first game, I chose a medium galaxy with a few clusters, and I was blown away at the sheer size of the resulting galaxy. The sector I started in was big enough to be considered a small map in the old Galactic Civilizations game. Here, it's just one sector among many, giving Galactic Civilization the potential for some truly epic galaxy sizes and a real epic feel to the gameplay, which is pretty fantastic because that was one of the gripes people like me had about the prior game. Galactic Civilizations 3 started out with some pretty huge maps, but over time, through various DLC and patch updates, Stardock shrunk them until even the biggest map felt small by the time the final DLC came out. So now they've swung the pendulum in the other direction, and I, for one, am really happy about it. One of the things that becomes clear as soon as you start playing Galactic Civilizations 4 is that they have borrowed heavily from other Space 4X games, especially Stellaris. And I actually think this is a really, really good thing, because I remember as a person playing Galactic Civilizations 3 and being on the forums, often wondering why they weren't utilizing certain design decisions that Stellaris utilized, because they were good decisions. You might as well borrow from the best. Stellaris is the king of the hill right now in the Space 4X genre, so why not borrow some of those things? And one of the things that they have borrowed is the research tree. Galactic Civilizations 4 has a tech tree system just like the previous Galactic Civilization games. But the way that the tech tree worked in the prior games was, if you researched this node for colonization, for instance, then you were free to research the research districts next, and then you could go from there, and you just went down the tech tree. And you could do it for any of the tech trees that existed. All you had to do is research the prior thing and then move on to the next one. And what it caused a lot of people to do was to race down some tech trees over the others, to value certain tech trees above all else, and to race down certain lines to get certain things. And it created, of course, a meta game, and it created a very same sort of experience for people over and over. Well, now Stardock has done something that I consider really, really smart. They've borrowed from Stellaris. And what they've done is, instead of allowing you to just research basically anything, they have this system here where you have 2 selections here and potentially a third if you unlock a technology for the minister. And what happens is you're still free to research any of these other things if you want to. This bottom panel is what you're going to be researching. You can research anything based on what you've already unlocked, but you get a 50% research bonus if you research one of these things up here. So this works like the old Stellaris system where, you select like the physics advisor and he gives you 3 projects and you're limited to those 3 projects. So it's not as locked in as the Stellaris system. You're not completely limited. You could still go down here, but this is going to be more costly than taking the bonus to these things where the time is going to be reduced. This is going to take 2 turns and this is going to take 4. But if you want to go down here and get orbital ship assembly, you're looking at 8 turns. So I really like this because it maintains the control for the player. You can still do whatever you want, but it gives you a reasonable bonus for doing it this way. This is the kind of design decision that I love. Player still has all the control in the world, but there is an incentive to do it this other way. Something else Stardock has also changed is the way anomalies work and are researched. You can see on this map here that there are these little items right here, these little capsules, and sometimes there's things like space junk. You can see it littered throughout the galaxy. This has always been a big part of the Galactic Civilizations universe, and part of the strategy for the player was building enough survey ships to go out and gobble these up before the AI did, particularly because some of these capsules could grant research bonuses. So it was strategically important for the player to, right before they grabbed a capsule, go up and change their research to something that required a lot of time and potentially gobble the capsule and shorten that research time. Over time, it seemed like Stardock really didn't want the player to do that, so they kept nerfing anomalies until they basically become pointless. And that was really disappointing in Galactic Civilizations 3. But for Galactic Civilizations 4, they have changed the system somewhat. And again, here we can see some of the Stellaris influence. One of the things they've done is they've limited the number of ships that you can have. Now, the player is limited to 1 flagship among their whole empire. These flagships with these survey modules being the only ones that can survey these anomalies. Now, personally, I think this is a bit restrictive, and it's possible that there's research in the tree that I haven't found yet that allows you to have more than 1 ship, and that would be really cool. That would be a cool way to handle it, I think, is with research unlocking that, or possibly an ideology choice. But for right now, at the beginning of the game, you're limited to this 1 ship. But where the Stellaris income comes into play is that it takes time now to analyze these capsules, these anomalies. In the old Galactic Civilizations 3, Galactic Civilizations 3, all you had to do was fly around and you could gobble each of these up. You could gobble multiple ones up in a single turn if you had enough travel points for your ship. Here, though, it's no longer the case. You got to come up here and you actually have to do the surveying, and it can take multiple turns. So I like that change. It's a change that comes via Stellaris, and I think it's a really good change. Another change that's really cool is how they are handling colony ships and constructors. In the old days of Galactic Civilizations 3, especially at the beginning, you could build as many colony ships and constructors as you wanted to. Your colony ships were kind of constrained by population. You still needed to have enough population on your planet to take them off and put them on a colony ship and send them out into space. So if you ran out of enough populations, you wouldn't be able to launch the ship. But constructors in the beginning, you could just spam those as much as you want. Constructors are used to grab resources in the galaxy, and resources in Galactic Civilization have always been supremely important. Well, now what Stardock has done is they've made it so that whenever you launch a colony ship or a constructor ship, you need a citizen. Citizens are something that grow and are earned on your planet over time. I really like this change. It's a way to limit the growth of every single player based on how many planets they have and how many citizens they have, but it still allows you to build these things in pretty abundant fashion. I didn't feel overly constrained when I was playing, like, oh no, I didn't have enough citizens. Every now and then I ran into a point where I couldn't launch something because you can't take the last citizen off of a planet. You have to have at least 2. I enjoyed this. I just thought it felt like the right mix of constraints, but still allowing the player to do all this stuff. It's still up to the player to decide what the priority is. Should I colonize? Should I send a constructor? Should I build something else? You still have to make choices, but it doesn't feel like you have both hands tied behind your back, which I really liked. Another change that I really liked is how they're handling the mining of asteroids. Here on this screen with Earth, you can see all these lines dashing in towards Earth from these asteroids around here. This is a really cool feature. Now, in the old Galactic Civilizations 3 game, you could certainly mine anywhere that you wanted to. I can't remember exactly what kind of ship it required, but you could just, I think all you had to do actually was click on the asteroids if they were close enough within the sphere of influence of a particular planet. Just click on them and pay some gold and start creating mines that would help with your production. And the gold always felt exorbitant for what you got out of the production of the mines, but here Stardock has once again changed things, and I think they've done it for the better. Now what you have to do is roll on into your shipyard and select the asteroid miner to generate the ship. But the part that I actually really like is that the asteroid miner itself is a one-use ship. In order to build this particular asteroid cluster over here and have it start bringing its power to Earth, the ship gets used up. So to grab these other asteroid clusters, you have to build other asteroid miner ships. From my perspective, this is, again, just feels like the perfect balance of the player has to make a choice of what ships to build. Do you want to get those asteroids? And early in the game, when you maybe aren't building some of the things, you have some free time or something, or you're not quite sure what you want to build next, build an asteroid miner and get it. I really like this design. I love the idea that the asteroid miner ship gets used up. So you're not left with a resource out here in the world and flying it around to a bunch of different places, trying to do more asteroids with it. Instead, it just gets used up and you got to build another one. I like the resource usage there. This again feels just like another really great change to me. And for yet another massive change to the game between Galactic Civilizations 3 and Galactic Civilizations 4 is how you deal with cultural progression in the game. I think this is one of the most dramatic changes in the game, and it's probably the one I like the most. There are a lot of changes from the predecessor, but the way they handle ideologies and cultural progression, I am loving. So in Galactic Civilizations 3, you had 3 ideologies, either benevolent, pragmatic, or malevolent. And depending on what you want to be, you would unlock certain traits quickly because they provided certain bonuses. And again, there was a metagame to the whole thing. And I'm sure there's a metagame that's going to evolve from this, but what they've done is they've gotten rid of those 3 ideologies, and instead they have replaced them with all of these ideologies at once. Now, there's still benevolence, there's still malevolence, and there's still pragmatism, but then there's all these other ones. You earn culture points as time ticks by, and I actually don't even know what the mechanic is for earning these points. I just know that I really like it because the game will tell you that you have enough culture points to add a new trait to your civilization. So you come in here and you can see we have enough points to add these. We can add something under malevolence if we want to, something under individualism, or something under authority. There's also liberty, opportunity, equality, tradition. All of these have little trees, and as you grab things, they provide certain bonuses. I really like this. Like right here, 1,000 homeworld influence unlocks the Heritage Project. that could be huge in a certain situation. There's innovation, deep investigation, +3 research after surveying an anomaly. Well, that's cool. So remember what I was saying about it used to be that you had the anomaly system in Galactic Civilization 3. You'd want to go gobble them up, change your research over before you gobbled one, etc., etc., etc. Well, now they've given you an ideology and innovation, and they've given you this. And there's a really nice bonus for getting this. So from what I've seen so far of the cultural progression of ideologies, I love this system. Now, I don't know it deeply enough now to know what the meta is going to be and where people are going to run a race to first. But so far, this much additional choice and some of the bonuses I'm seeing in here, I really, really like this. And I think it makes it much more fun than the old system where there were only 3 ideologies and you really could only afford to go down one ideology tree, and that was it. You had to either choose to be evil and malevolent, pragmatic, or benevolent, and that was it. This is much more interesting. You can really mix and match here. Obviously, the way the points get progressively more expensive to spend in these trees, you could just go get a bunch of first tier stuff, or if there's a couple of trees you want to go down, then you're going to want to save your points and bury the needle. But overall, this is a really welcome change, and I like the way this looks, and I like the way it's used, and I'm just really digging it. And of course, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about how the planets are. This is pretty cool. It's very similar to the old Galactic Civilizations 3 system. It's all a hex-based tile system. I love it that the bonuses are still here. There are still adjacency bonuses, and there are bonuses to tile. So for instance, if you want to put down something that has to do with manufacturing, you're going to want to find a manufacturing bonus tile to it. There are tile bonuses for research. There are buildings give adjacency bonuses. So again, there's still the mini game here of trying to get your planet configured in such a way that you get the maximum number of bonuses by the way you arrange your buildings. And then of course there's this stuff, planetary conversion. If you get this research, and I think you can get it really early, then you can spend, it tells you it's going to take 9 turns to do this. So you come over here and it says colony unique planetary conversion allows us to convert an unproductive tile into a useful one. So you can do that. Now it's saying it's colony unique, 1 per planet, so it looks like you can only do 1 of these tiles and not all of them. That's really interesting. But again, in the old Galactic Civilizations 3, there was technology you could keep getting, which would allow you to terraform more of these tiles. So I'm guessing that sort of technology exists here. So you're going to get 1 right away and then maybe more later. This all looks great, and so far it's been really easy to manage. There's a build queue down here. It's all really nice. You can see the numbers and stuff. It's very nicely done. And I don't mean to belabor this video as being a comparison between Galactic Civilizations 3 and Galactic Civilizations 4. It's just that I spent a lot of time playing 3, and so that's the easiest way that I can talk about 4, is by saying what has changed. If you're new to the Galactic Civilizations series at all, and you're looking at this first look wondering, is this a game I want to play instead of Stellaris, or alongside Stellaris, or alongside Distant Worlds 2, or whatever, my vote so far is going to be absolutely yes. I'm really enjoying what I'm seeing. But to continue the conversation here, one of the things, and yet another thing I should say, that has changed is the way shipyards work. In Galactic Civilizations 3, you could go into any of these shipyards and it would have a number of sponsors. In fact, I'm going to hit the management. It shows you the sponsor here is Earth. Now, in Galactic Civilizations 3, the older game, you could manually sponsor up to 5 different planets on a shipyard. So it really paid to have, like, in a particular, it had to be within a certain range because there was decay. The further away a planet was sponsoring a shipyard, the more its production would decay. I liked that system a lot. And it set it up so that you wanted to have certain shipyards built in certain locations and sponsored by like your most strongest 5 planets so that you could crank out warships really fast. Well, they have changed that. And what they've done now is a shipyard only has 1 sponsor. It's the planet that it's built for. And then what happens is all of these asteroids that are feeding production into Earth and any other minor planets, like I haven't colonized Mars yet, but if I colonize Mars and I don't make it a core world, and we'll talk about that in a second, If I don't make it a core world, then its production also funnels to Earth, which funnels to this shipyard. So it's changed the way shipyards work and are funded with production, but I really like it. I like this change. Now, while we're here, we'll talk about core worlds. So core worlds are worlds in which you have assigned a governor to them, which allows all of the tiles to become available so that you can start building on it. But you don't have to assign a governor to every single planet. And indeed you shouldn't, because they're, first of all, somewhat expensive to hire, but also because what you actually want to do is create colonies that are funneling production to the core world. And over on the right hand side of the screen, you can see what I have. I have several core worlds, and then I have this Fortis one, which right now is a colony. And we can go down to it and see it now. It's a big planet. It's a class 18 excellent. I'm going to put a governor on it at some point in time. All of these planets in here ended up being pretty amazing. But there are planets where you're going to want to not make them core worlds. You can see here, there's no way to manage this planet. You can assign a governor, but until I do, all it's doing is funneling some of its production to somebody else. And you can see it right here. So right here, it is funneling its production to Fortis 2, which is funneling its production to this shipyard. So that's the difference between a core world and a colony, which is something that's never existed in the previous part of the game. Every planet has always been considered the same. So I like this. What it's going to do is it is going to make it valuable for you to colonize the smaller worlds, the really tiny ones. Like this, it's a class 2 poor. It's just going to be saved as a colony, but you can see how it's sending its production to Caster 5. So I like this system. This is a class 0 dead world. You don't want to mess with that. But I do like this. This is going to be a really cool way to handle the game and the different worlds, because there are so many different size worlds. There's a class 1 poor down here. Somebody has colonized it. Or maybe they haven't. Yeah, they haven't, because there's not a speak to down there. But, you know, this is going to be really neat. I like the way this works. So you can see from the game that I've been playing that I am now 69 turns into the game, and this starting sector that I started in is very busy. Most of the habitable planets have been claimed by now, and a lot of the resources have been claimed. There's only a few left. And I have started to branch off myself into this other sector, which I already know is probably in the same sort of condition. I do have a colony ship that's going to race over here to try to beat these guys to this little tiny class 5 poor planet. What I'm saying about this is it turns 69. War still hasn't broken out yet, and that's a huge part of the Galactic Civilization universe. It's all about conflict and war and how you handle it. There are multiple victory conditions, and you can try to win the game in a number of different ways. You know me, I typically like to try to win things by domination. But right now, I'm just playing to experience the game. So I don't have a full scope of the game because I haven't gone into the warfare yet. I haven't gotten into building fleets and conquering enemies and seeing how that works yet, and seeing how different it is from Galactic Civilizations 3. But what I can say is this galaxy looks pretty damn massive to me. And I don't know if there are sectors all over it or not, but it sure seems like there might be. This could be really, really big. So I'm excited to keep playing the game and see how it all works out. I'm stunned by the size of these maps. This is only medium. Are you kidding me? This is amazing. But also, one of the things I've always loved about the Galactic Civilization game is just the way they look. It's always a beautiful game. They've done a really good job with the art style and with the influence lines and making this galaxy look and feel alive. That was one of the problems that I really had with Galactic Civilizations 3 at the end, is that the maps got really small and they felt really dead, and the colonization and exploration part of the game happened so quickly it was over before you could blink, and then you had hair trigger hostile enemies and other factions, and so you'd get decimated right away, and it just got to the point where it wasn't fun. So this part here, what we like to call the colony rush, it's the exploration and colonization phase. This took 69 turns and it was fun. I enjoyed exploring. I enjoyed going around and trying to figure out, should I build a constructor to grab a resource now, or should I build another colony ship? People were gobbling stuff up as we went. It was a ton of fun. So I'm only at this point in the game. That's why I'm calling this a first look video. It's not a review. I haven't played far enough to finish the game and be able to do a proper review on it. But Stardock has given me carte blanche to make as many videos as I want to on whatever timeline I want to. This game is in early access. They've said that they're planning a release within the next 3 to 6 months. We'll see how that pans out. I'm all for staying in early access as long as you need to iron out everything. But I'm really enjoying it. I think it's a huge departure from Galactic Civilizations 3. It's doing everything right so far from what I can see. It's bigger, it's better. I think they've really fine-tuned what they want this game to be, as far as it's really focused on player choice. And I'm enjoying that a lot. And it looks and sounds great. It's a super game. So definitely look for more of this on my channel. I think we'll do a Let's Play. I'm gonna set one up on a small galaxy and see how many sectors there are. This is amazing. So we'll do that. This is phenomenal. So if you've been wondering what the Galactic Civilizations 4 game is like, I know there are people who've asked me specifically on my Patreon page, on Twitter, in other places, hey, are you going to play Galactic Civ 4? The answer now is yes. Stardock has given me a key, and I'm going to sally forth and we're going to see what this is like. But so far, my verdict is I'm very much enjoying this, folks. Very much enjoying this. So with that, I will leave you with the standard sign off. If you dug the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments and questions down below. Consider supporting my Patreon. It's listed in the description below. And I will see you all next time. Look for more Galactic Civilizations 4 content coming in the future weeks. And until next time, happy gaming, everyone.